High up in the Asian highlands, I really wanted to have this beautiful diorama that took into account a whole lot of different aspects of Nepalese culture, Nepalese animals, and the like of that sorts. So welcome everyone, I hope you guys enjoy this first diorama mode speed build. Well, welcome everyone. So it's going to be super awesome to have you guys here today. We are working on this beautiful diorama, and it's just really fun, really versatile. I'm super excited to actually get into the process with all of you guys. So you might have noticed from our pre-show cinematics that I will be using mods in here, modded animals specifically, so you could still load into the map. You just won't have the yak or the markhor in there if you don't have it installed. And we'll talk a little bit more about those animals and their kind of prevalence to Nepalese culture, Nepalese history and stuff like that, so that's going to be something that we're going to touch upon. But for the time being, I need to give a quick shout out to my boy Zuv. He made these wonderful kind of mud wall banks that we're going to be using sort of as a basis for our rock work in this habitat. Really awesome pieces. He really helped us out over here. They use the stalagmites, and they also use the faux trees, and yeah, that's really it. I also sneak in the tiger rocks as well, because I wanted it to match the color of those. And yeah, you can see I'm essentially working with the rock work to create these dynamic shapes that normally you can't really do with the terrain mode. And by the way, I do need to talk about the actual diorama mode itself. It's so fun. Unfortunately, free build does not work with it, which is a little bit of a shame, but once you actually determine the shape of what you want your diorama to look like, you can go back and reinstall free build to, essentially do whatever you need to do. So, say for example, if you want to put down paths in there that are only like 2 meters big, you can do that. You'll just want to make sure that you don't have it installed when you're altering the shape of that at first. But you could see I wanted this diorama to have very much a flowing motion, so I wanted all these different points where you could look at. I have this up here, and this is what's known as a stupa. So we're going to be working on this stupa. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. If I'm not, please let me know. I'm not sure how big my Nepalese audience is out there, but please correct me if I'm wrong. But essentially, these kind of mark rooftops. These also mark mountaintops around Nepal. You can see a lot of these in the mountain ranges all across Nepal and a little bit of northern India as well. So it's just very cool to actually be able to build one of these. And one of my favorite features about these is that they actually have little eyes in them. So you'll see that I kind of build one in just a little bit. It's super fun. And I really challenge you guys to make your own versions of these, because it was such a pleasure just to be able to make something like this. And yeah, that's really it. So I'm using the mud pillar technique because they are circular mounds, if that makes sense. So I'm using a whole slurry of different instruments at my disposal. So I'm using a whole bunch of Twilight pieces because the Twilight pack, listen, I know so many people criticized it for having the most hyper-specific pieces with the mushrooms and stuff, but those are just a small fraction of the pack. The stone is really good, the wood is really good, and it's just a really wonderful pack. Another iconic kind of setting of these stupas are these gold pieces, which I really hope I nail them good. You can see I'm having a little bit of struggle trying to make them work, but I bring it out, then push it back in. And I also do something I did in Sonora Springs, and that's kind of doing a little bit more of a gradient with the textures and the colors and stuff. So you can see it gets a little bit darker towards the top, and I think that just gives, those are the little eyes right there. I actually used the butterfly decals for that, so that was kind of fun. But I really like working with gradients now. It's just so fun just to be able to do that. And I'm using a whole different bunch of those classic pieces. And it's just super fun just to be able to do stuff like that. Also using the trowels up there to create that unique little thing on the top. I'm not sure what you call that. My research was very limited when I went into this. I know what a stupa is. That's all I know. I don't know the parts of a stupa, unfortunately. But they're also used to adorn religious buildings and stuff like that, so I just really wanted to make sure I emphasize that as well. So this really isn't a religious piece in terms of the context of this build, but it's a kind of marker for a mountain, which also do kind of have somewhat of a religious prevalence in Nepalese Buddhism and stuff like that, so that is very cool to see. So you can see I'm actually getting to work over here on the building itself. I didn't want to go too crazy because this is a diorama after all, but I did want to try and bring in some of the kind of building motifs from Nepalese culture, Nepalese architecture, that I was able to piece together. So this is very much in lines of like the monasteries that they have over there. Very much in line with those Buddhist temples, so it's just very fun to be able to really work with a new building structure that I really haven't had the chance to dabble with before. When I was looking for ideas, I usually do planning before DLCs and stuff, and I was asking some of my friends, like, Mr. Nicholas Lionrider, I was like, what do I even do for dioramas? Like, I'm so spent. I did so many. And he's like, you never do Asian builds. And I was like, yeah, that's actually kind of right. So that's exactly what I kind of wanted to do today. And what also was such a pleasure was being able to use so many awesome mods in here. And we'll talk about those when we actually do get to like the areas where I do decorate for them, because they were so fun to build for. And yeah, that's really it. Eventually I do throw in the snow leopards in here. It's a little bit difficult. I really wish they implemented like a place down the animal thing for dioramas, because still needing to put down a trade center is a little annoying when it comes to, the whole diorama thing, but I'll get over it for Frontier for this time around. But I switch out the colors over there because I wanted the building to be whiter than the actual stone that it's based on. And I had a little bit of troubles for the windows, but I think I kind of settled on like a good idea. So I kind of repeat those patterns on themselves. So I flip the windows upside down, and I think they look pretty good in the end. I thought that was a really fun little motif to do. A little bit of difficulties on the other sides as well, but I think I was able to manage it fine enough. And I also add this very beautiful India door over here. What I really do love about building for like Nepal areas that I've, as I just said, I don't really build for them too much. The India pack works so well for that kind of stuff. And it's just really fun to build for. Also the classic pack, believe it or not. A lot of these Nepalese buildings I was able to see have these very beautiful roofs. So I hope I was able to achieve that relatively well. They use a lot of like this beautiful dark dry wood looking pieces. So I was absolutely sure to actually make good use out of those. I think it actually turned out very, very good in the end. And of course I throw on some shingles. It's not these exact kinds of shingles that they would use in areas like this, but for aesthetic reasons, and for reasons that I didn't want to go through and make a custom roof set, I think they look very good for the time being. So once I duplicate that on the other side, I have this area over here. Once I do the rest of that trim right there, I do have the rest of that area over to the right of the building, over where the door is. That's like, oh, I have this entire area. What do I even do? So I actually use one of the canvas pieces from the India pack, because again, it goes so well with like building these Nepalese areas. So I thought it fit in perfectly. So I kind of cover up those unsightly wooden pieces with even more wooden pieces. And I thought this would be a fun little motif. I thought those were a little bit too hyper decorated right there. So I kind of cover those up, and yeah, that's really it. Also adding a small little fence over there just in case if anyone falls down. We don't want that. And we could actually see I threw in the animals over here. And let's talk about these animals for a little bit. So the wild yak, that mod I'm using over here, I would have loved for it to be a domestic yak. So that's kind of the purpose that we're using for it right now. Yaks are very well adapted to the kind of climate of Nepal, and they're very, very prominent within agricultural societies within the area. They're oftentimes very versatile in traversing like the terrain around there. Bovine species really aren't the best for climbing these mountainous areas, but yaks do it extremely well. So it's just really good to have those guys if you're a farmer over there in Nepal or northern India, or even like southwest China. Yeah, I had to I still don't know my east from west half the time, so I always gotta draw it out with my hands. But I really wanted this guy to have his own little paddock down here, and he won't escape from there, so that is just very good to have. In addition to that, I also have the Markhor, which I'll be building for relatively soon. I kind of trap them on the top of the mountain as well. So that's just a really fun little motif to have in there. That's what I love about these dioramas. It's very much like building one in real life. It's wherever you want something to be, you can place it in there, and they'll just be there. And it's just super awesome. Except in Planet Zoo, they actually move, and they actually make sounds. So that's actually really fun to work with. So I'm using a mix of different terrain palettes in here. The Dren grass is perfect for these kind of mountainous areas, and I still love the seed pods when it comes to the Yorkshire fog grass. I think it works really well, especially in this case, to give a little bit more of a brighter twinge on the grass. And I also use a whole bunch of different trees. Not a whole bunch, I only put down 5 trees in total, but I use some of the Douglas firs because I really do like their color and their texture. And in addition to that, I also use the Himalayan birches because of course I do. Also throwing down a few flowers in here, not really going too crazy with the flowers. I think I just use the asters and that alpine flowers, like the kind of lavender looking plant. And this is one of my favorite parts of the diorama over here. It's actually using the mist machines to create this kind of beautiful high up in the clouds kind of look. And I think it pays off super good in the end with all this cinematics and stuff. So I thought that was super awesome. Also throwing in some tools for whatever farmers around here, just because, they would probably need tools to kind of, get the job done around here. So that's some of the stuff that I like to include in these little dioramas. It's telling tiny little stories, and it's just super fun just to be able to work with that kind of stuff. Throwing the Markhors up on the top over here, we'll talk about these guys for a little bit. Markhors are known as snake eaters. I know, it's very crazy. Why would a goat ever eat a snake? Well, it's very much rooted in, I forget what actual original culture kind of developed this, but they're called snake eaters because a long time ago they were actually thought to have eaten snakes, and that's why their horns kind of curl the way that they do. I believe that this type of Markhor in particular is a Bukharan Markhor, which I believe should be found over Pakistan and Nepal. Please fact check me on that because I need my fact checkers in the comments always. But yeah, just really cool animals. I love goat species, I love caprids, and the Markhor is definitely one of the coolest ones. The Bronx Zoo has them, Stone Zoo has them. I've seen them a couple times this year, and it's just really awesome to really watch these animals kind of just traverse amongst their habitats. Speaking of their habitats, we are working on this beautiful prayer flag setup. So prayer flags, I really wish I actually researched this beforehand because I would have loved to have talked about them a little bit more, but they're very synonymous with Nepalese culture, with Nepalese hiking and stuff like that. I know all the time if you do go up a mountain in the mountain range that Mount Everest is in, you'll definitely see a lot of prayer flags around there, and even in the cities too. What many people should probably know, and I gotta thank Nick again for teaching me this, is that if you don't do these colors in order, it won't look right. And I completely agree with that sentiment now. You could see that the pattern follows blue, white, red, green, yellow, I think. Just double check me on that. But you could see that we are finally in the cinematics, and it was just such a joy to put together. Really quick speed build this time around, but I hope you guys enjoyed that, because it was super fun just to be able to build for modded animals again. I know it's been so long, but I apologize on that front. It's been a while. And Wild Woods really captured my attention for a good minute there. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little bit of a speed build. And I hope you guys are enjoying the new diorama mode, because it's a super fun addition to the game, and I hope you guys find all the enjoyment in it. I can't wait to see you guys in the next episode. I hope you guys have the most wonderful of wonderful days, and bye-bye now.